Hello guys, I'm Apology2 and I'm here to basically do an opinion video. What is this about? Well, I said I was gonna make one of these, so this one's about the whole entire console wars that has coincided, like really has ended. But if we look back into it, we can clearly see that where it really started, where people started paying attention to it, was in like the early 90s, I guess, or really like the more early on when Nintendo and Sega were making their systems out. That was the beginning of the console wars really happening there, and it was really a rivalry that has like made it conscientious to the time. Now, if you see nowadays, Sega's not really making games, and Nintendo's still here. Whether or not Nintendo is winning is out of the question, because Nintendo's a very old company, and we'll get to that point a little bit later. For right now, it was like, for early on, after Sega's kind of fall, it was mainly Nintendo who was there for a lot of people who were gaming. Now, PC was a big thing later on. In the earlier times, PC was barely getting its feet and figuring stuff out, and right there. But not to say PC was not a thing. But PC computers are different from consoles. So we're going to talk about that one ultimately a little bit later. So for right now, when Nintendo had the reins for a while and took it away from Sega after Sega's system started failing, they almost didn't have any competition. That wasn't until Sony, which surprisingly was supposed to be hired for Nintendo to make their new console, but due to a deal that went sour in a ways, so could say, Sony went out to make their own console. Now, I could include the fact that there were other contenders making other consoles trying to compete with Nintendo and Sega, but hardly anyone really remembers them. And I'm not going to say they weren't selling, but it was not to say that their quality met the same type of thing as Nintendo and Sega. But Nintendo and Sega themselves also fell down that steep hole, trying a little too hard with some things, which many people try to forget, and Nintendo tries to make you forget. So, where are we today? Well, before we get to that, when Sony jumped into this, threw their hat in, they were the new dogs. They were the underdogs, and it was hard to see them actually accomplishing anything if you look back when they first did this. But when they threw their hat in, they threw anything at them, and like Sony quickly rose to popularity as it was just going fast and great. And Sony was starting to soon began to outdo Nintendo in a way. And while the next consoles were coming out for both Nintendo and Sony, someone else threw their hat in: Microsoft. And Microsoft was also known for PCs, and PCs still at the time were making their way into the whole gaming scene, but not effectively yet. So anyone who's saying, come on, what you can talk about PCs? Not effectively yet, because while sure they are there are some games for PC that are there that do stick out than some most. Like I could say like Doom or other things like that really made their impact on the PC gaming side. It wasn't like a mainstream thing, and this is where we have to look at what is something that's more mainstream that you can get. Because when you look at something, when you look at like how many people actually had a computer, who actually had the technology to run these things or to play such things or something like that, it was a little bit everyone could do it, but it's like who had it at home or who had to go to a different place to do it. Like in earlier times, like very early before these home consoles came out, it used to be arcades where everyone went going to arcades. And I remember when I was a kid, I always loved to go to arcades and all that. And I wasn't really born earlier on when I was born when the consoles were coming out, so I can't really say I've experienced the whole entire arcade super vibe. Like I experienced it super late while it was dying out. There were still people in there, but it was quickly dying. And if you see arcades now, they're not big and vast as they used to be. So yeah. But I can say the console impact was great and affected a lot of people. And this went on when Microsoft threw their console out, the Xbox. And the Xbox did super well. Surprisingly to most people, that that Microsoft knew what they were doing with this. And did super well and like sold a lot. And just grabbed everyone's attention. While PlayStation 2 also was coming out, and Nintendo's GameCube was getting there. It was just clear to see who was making better. It was either Sony, Microsoft, or Nintendo. And Nintendo had to make some grounds. While Nintendo made some good titles that were made for the GameCube, I can say that most of the time you saw someone with a PlayStation 2 or an Xbox. And I'm just saying, mostly that's the truth. But for most families, you would see a GameCube. And I'm not saying GameCube is a bad console. It's a good console. I have a GameCube. What did I get at the time when it was coming out? I got a PS2. I was a PlayStation. Used to be a PlayStation fanboy, but I'm currently everything now. I just want to try everything, basically. But if you that's besides the point. If you look at that as it grew, it was amazing. Actually, it was really amazing, and to me, it just sparked so much interest to everyone. Everyone was just like seeing this craze being built up. Where were these consoles, you know? And it really exploded when the 360, PS3, and the Wii came out. That made everything explode. While the PS3 was a little late, as well as you can see, like when it came out, it's not to say that it did not do super well. It did very well. Very surprisingly to most people. But it did super well. And the 360 did super well itself as well. But you could see that Sony was not going to be left behind by Xbox. By Microsoft. It was not. Sony was not going to be left behind by Microsoft. Sony was making their console the best they can make it. And clearly Nintendo was trying new things to be innovative. And not to say they weren't working. They were working as fine as they could. But I could say at the time Nintendo was making way more in their handheld console market. Like with the DS and the Game Boy Advance that came before it. The DS was making heads turn to like going outside and playing things differently, something like that, you know, on a handheld system. And now I could talk about PCs also. I could have talked about PCs during the Xbox time, but the thing is, it was again while you could play some of these games on PC, it was pretty much almost the same. It was almost the same as a console. And don't look at me bad, lads here, okay? Who have a PC right now. I know you guys are gonna look at me bad. All right, sorry if I don't know that much, but I'm not like a PC master guy here. Like, I only know because how much I learned from studying PC myself. So please don't blame me. All right, but PC was growing fast because it was already starting to surpass some of the things that a console could do towards the end of the lifespan. And by the time the Xbox 360 came out and the PS3, before their lifetimes even ended, PC itself passed a quality standard, and PC itself was getting a little, like, was getting some notice as well by some people. What I mean by this is by mainstream content, and by mainstream, PC was starting to get really noticed during the time of 360 and PS3, and it was still kind of overshadowed by them, but it was something to reckon with. PC was still there in Xbox time and PS2 time, but it wasn't until like towards the middle, or like I could say endish of the 360 and PS3 lifespan, where PC was really getting its quality out there and people were starting to take real big notice to it. And it was like everyone was like saying, hey, why not buy a PC? And a PC is okay because I don't have to keep buying a console, I just upgrade my PC. You know, plain and simple. And that idea would expand as time went on, because as the 360 and PS3 reached their life end and Nintendo went to Wii U during that halftime too, Nintendo tried another gimmick basically because they released the Wii earlier than everyone else, released their other next gen to get sales, but like their Wii U didn't, I could say, by many people would say as well, like the Wii U did not do as well as like it should have like done, and the reason why it's like it was many people said too, like it was a plain gimmick, and why would anyone really do it? Not to say that it's bad, it's plain and it's a good system, I could say. I don't have a Wii U so I can't really depend on the system learning anything yet. Like I'm saying, I'm good to try anything, but I'm still poor, so I can't really afford much, you know. But I have played a little bit of it because I've known someone who had it, and I went there and tried it out myself, and I could say the system was fine, but I could see where people had complaints. So there's that. And during the end of the 360, PS3, and Wii U, it was a whole entire change of, because there were so many gamers now. There were so many gamers that came out of that whole entire era that weren't there, you could say, during the beginnings of the PS2 or Xbox age. They weren't there to experience that. They came in during, or like during the beginnings or in the middle of the 360 or PS3 lifespan. And while that's fine, gamers getting more attention, but it became a point where the more casual gamer became more popular than the hard gamer, and that became a difference. Yeah, I'm not gonna talk about that. That's gonna be another opinion video for another time, but because I'm talking about the consoles here, not gamers themselves, right? What I'm using that as is that it became a focus then, who has the better looking thing, because like I said before, PC grew even more better than the console. PC was looking really, really good, so a console had to catch up to that rate. That's where it, instead of becoming while still it was a console war, it almost became a graphical war. Who had the best graphics and stuff like that. Days over now, I can see, thankfully, that has changed a little bit. Well, I can see some people care more about gameplay instead of graphics. But at the beginnings, you have to agree that most people were caring about the graphics. And to me, it seemed really dumb. It seemed really, really dumb. But that's how it was. And as the next ones came out, like the Xbox One, PS4, Wii U was still out for Nintendo, and they were just trying to improve upon it and improve games upon it. And while there's fine, we did see a decline in the way of Nintendo's games and stuff like that. That Nintendo's popularity that they had before had fallen really bad. While in the handheld market with 3DS and stuff like that came out, they were holding their reins on that. They're holding their reins still right now, kind of, in a way. Actually, no, they're gonna still hold that in a way, as long as their next console does really good. Just to say that Nintendo wasn't good. And before I ramble more on the best of that, I could ramble about Nintendo's how their fall and shit later on. That's for another time. To basically end this video with this last part of this console wars, it came to like now where we are. We have the Xbox One and PS4, and we're seeing the next generation coming out as we see the new ones come out, like the PlayStation 4 Pro and the Xbox One S coming out as new updated editions of the Xbox One and PS4, but for upgraded ways. We can see that consoles are starting to decline in a way because graphics are going way too far, and you don't have to look anywhere further than the PC. I'm not saying the PC wins ultimately, but it's definitely a force to be reckoned with because it's with them. Between consoles and doing it at home at a cheaper price, consoles themselves are starting to get low and outdated. While you could still afford a console that will give you good screen quality, you know that, it's hard to say that the game developed for the console will come with the same type of graphics. And not to say that it won't take a lot of memory on that console. I've seen that too many times before. And to finish it off this note, for right now, PlayStation went up above Xbox and this year. And in this last year's, as the PS4 and Xbox One came out, PlayStation just took over Microsoft at this point. Not to say that Microsoft isn't done. They're playing basically catch up, and they're starting to get back up there. But their systems, I could say, is not going to be working out as far as you want it to be. But if they can get more benefits out of what they're doing right now, what they're playing, the ones that play anywhere and stuff like that, I guarantee that might push them up. Otherwise, that's pretty much it. I could say the end for Nintendo. Not really. No. Nintendo's gonna continue. You got kids, they're gonna play Nintendo. Alright? Can't avoid that. Next Pokemon game's coming out in the next few days. I'm sure a lot of people are gonna buy that. Nintendo's not gonna be over. They're gonna come out with the Nintendo Switch. That I heard that's gonna be both a console and a handheld. While that's not gonna be the best looking thing, I can say, it's gonna be very convenient for a lot of people. Well, that's pretty much it for these basically this gaming wars opinion video type of thing. What's my opinion totally? Who I think is the better one? I think that personally in my opinion that I don't think you can really compare anything with a PC. But, you know, I can barely play PC because my PC's a piece of crap. So the only thing I could play on was, I got a PS4 and I got an Xbox One. So, which one's better out of them? I have more experience with an Xbox One than I do on PS4. But from the things I've seen on PS4, it really surprised me in how much they had and how much there was. And compared to an Xbox One, they're really similar. It's hard to say which one's really better. Unless you have both of them yourself, then you can see clearly what I mean. They're really similar. The only reason why I would say PlayStation wins a little bit, by the little slimmest margin, is that it has a unique style to it that only it does, and it has more flexibility of understanding how things work than the Xbox One does. Well, the Xbox One has infinite conveniences it can do. The PlayStation 4 has more of a personal compatibility, you know? It's more easier to understand than the Xbox One, basically. But that's it. That's my opinion. Hope you guys enjoyed. This was a long video because this is a long opinion. I never said this was going to be a long one. I never said this was going to be a short one. I mean, opinion videos could be long or short. Hope you enjoyed. This is Pody 2, and I'm signing off. To completely destroy Dawn and Goofy. Oh, they're destroying me. They're picking me apart here. These freaking vultures.